Good morning, everybody. This is a joint presentation. The original plan was that there would be three of us speaking, but unfortunately, as we heard yesterday, that Agnes, it does work, went down with COVID last week. So a bit of a mad scramble on Tuesday. I had a 45-minute Zoom meeting with her, so I'm going to be giving her part of the presentation, along with my own, and then Martin Gusssone is going to speak at the end, putting everything into context. So please bear with me when I do Agnes's bit. I may have to make some of it up. So the next, there we go. So the overview of the presentation is we're going to give you a little slide about where al-Ḥīra through the keyhole, and I may explain why we're calling it keyhole later, where it fits into a larger project which would have been done by Agnes. Then I'm going to say a little bit about the challenge of using hexagon imagery in the study. Agnes was then going to talk about how she went about georeferencing the images, and then finally at the end Martin will talk about the contextualizing the images and what we've learned from it. So the first part, al-Ḥīra through the keyhole. I don't know whether you know why keyhole. Well, it's at the bottom actually. There's a little another name for hexagon is KH, and the KH actually stands for keyhole, and that was the code name that was given to the camera system that was carried by the satellite. So this is a part of a larger study that's being funded by DFG, looking at late antique and early Islamic urbanistic transformation. The aim of this particular part of the project is to see how we can use hexagon satellite imagery to complement other sources. So, we've got Corona, GOI, Google Earth, UAV, and some magnetometry to look how over time the encroachment of modern settlements has occurred into the al-Ḥīra area, and not yet, but ultimately to see if we can try and produce a DTM using the stereo imagery acquired by one of the hexagon missions. I'll move on here. In order to understand what we're doing, you've really got to understand what hexagon is. I'm sure everybody is aware of Corona and the huge impact that has had on archaeological prospection. Hexagon was the follow-on system to Corona, operational between 1970s, 1980s. Like Corona, carried a couple of stereo panoramic cameras, but the quality was certainly far much better than Corona. So here's an example from East Sussex, I think it is, in southern England. This is a chalk figure on the downlands, the Longman of Wilmington. So in 1973, Hexagon was giving this product compared with Google Earth satellite imagery from a year ago. So it's a good high quality product. The other thing is that, like Corona, there's a huge archive of photographs available. They were first declassified back in 2013, but then all that was available was coverage of the United States. However, from the late 2022 onwards, actually become available through the USGS Earth Explorer website. Hexagon was a big beast. It was named a big bird in the newspapers. They managed to find out, but it's about the size of the shuttle bus that we came on from the airport. It's big beast, big rocket to launch it. Film, probably, I think each camera had around about 25 kilometers of film to take pictures with. An awful lot of film. And periodically throughout the mission, through these little recovery buckets, film was returned to Earth for processing. So, very conveniently, Emily Hammer and Jason with they published a paper in Antiquity last year, or maybe 2022, and they do have an online site that shows the coverage of HEXAGON, and you can see it is. Yep, it's an American system, so not surprisingly, it was looking at Eastern Europe, the Soviet Union, Southeast Asia, but also the Middle East as well. And each of these little hexagons that they put are color coded for the number of images that are covered in those areas. If we zoom in, zoom back, al-Ḥīra is this square. You can just about see it here in Iraq. If we zoom in, there's around about 1,000 images that are covered by that hexagon. So that's given a bit of a problem of deciding which one shall we go for. The other challenge is that this was a panoramic camera, so there's huge panoramic distortions. This is just an example. It's not hexagon, but it's showing the distortion of so this is a uniform grid of squares when they appear actually on a hexagon, on a panoramic camera. So huge distortion towards the edges as it's looking out. This beast is traveling at around about 20 odd thousand kilometers an hour overhead, 9 kilometers a second. So there's huge image motion that has to be compensated for, that results in this huge distortions. Not surprisingly, the ground, the kind of spatial resolution increases the further from below the satellite you get away. So that's one of the problems, is the huge distortion. The second one is that whereas Corona just did a single swath looking, I think it was 90 degrees, 45 degrees either side of where it was traveling, Hexagon went out to 120 degrees, but also it could actually be steered to look at different parts of the area. So this is just a simulation, really. So this is the full swath. So the satellite's coming down, it's looking. So you've probably got about 600 kilometers by about 20, 30 kilometers in each strip. Oh, I hate this. The problem is my thumb's too big. Chop my thumb off. But it could also look to the left, it could look to the right, it could look to the center, really to conserve film throughout the mission, which lasted a couple of months or so. So it could do that. And the challenge is that we don't know. We can see what the footprint on the ground looks like from the Earth Explorer, but we'll never know really from just what we can see whereabouts relative to where the satellite was, the actual target area, because the further away we get, the more distortion. So the solution that I adopted was one to model the orbit of the satellite using the freeware version of a commercial package called STK. And I'd successfully used this with Corona. So I use freely available two-line elements. It's a technical term, which is the ephemeris. of the satellite, historical ephemeris, which when you apply Kepler's laws to, you can work out in time and space where the satellite was. And then using a sensor, rectangular sensor, to represent the footprint. And there we go. So we can this. That's the yellow is what the Earth Explorer is saying. The footprint is the white is what the model footprint, and that is actually more realistic because it is bow-tie shaped, because contrary to popular belief, the Earth is not flat, it is actually curved. So we then looked at where on the position relative to the satellite the al-Ḥīra site was. We could check whether it was cloud-free and then make an assessment of how the likely distortion. And it worked. The approach worked. We managed to do, out of the 12 missions, 9 of them what could be modelled. For some reason, I couldn't get the ephemeris for mission 1217. The footprints agreed with what the USGS were saying, and you can see the difference in the distortion. So this is part of the more modern settlement, al-Najaf, which is very close to the line of flight of the satellite, and it's quite it's slightly distorted, but when you get further away, there's far more distortion. So from those, we chose 5 photographs, which were funded kindly by ARG, and this is showing where they are. You can see one of which was, I'll dispense with what the first one, this one here. For some reason, the image was overexposed, and of course you can't predict that from the modeling, but otherwise there were more or less expecting to have high to possibly slight reduced spatial resolution and distortion. We then came on to, so this is Agnes's point, part of the work, georeferencing. We had a problem because from the Ukraine work, and from the ARG Ukraine working group, we knew that we needed to have at least 25, 30 control points on a smallish size segment of the image. And that would allow us to georeference to around about 10, 12 meters or so. The problem is that Ukraine was lovely, lots of fields, lots of roads. I could easily identify control points on there. Here we've got a problem. The area that we're interested in is here, and there's hardly any control points that we can use. So Agnes took points to the west, the south, the east. So I think there's a couple up there. This area is now inundated with water, so we couldn't use that. But she managed to georeference them. I don't think she's actually calculated how accurate it is. Let's see what we've got. So this is the pipeline. Downloaded image from scans of the image from the USGS for about 9 gigabytes per image, conveniently provided in around about 750 meg chunks, from which she extracted those areas that corresponded to the survey area. She did a histogram equalization just to bring out some of the detail, georeferenced using QGIS, and that resulted in the georeferenced images. And if we just move on to this, come on, wakey. All right, it's gone to sleep now. Oh, it's there. All right, okay. So this is corona. Not much you can see. Corona from about 68 or so. There's something appearing here. So this is around hexagon. It's coming out more. another hexagon image from 73. You can see in relief. 74 was a particularly good mission, with quite a lot being seen. Then we've got this is a hexagon 82, so quite grainy this one. GOI, yeah. A Foshan XXX. I googled this and got some very dodgy websites, so I shut away very quickly. We don't know the actual origin of this data set, I understand. And here's the magnetometry. The key thing is that what it's showing is that we can model the predicted performance of the system, but we can't actually model the actual performance because there are other factors that are coming into play, perhaps sand being blown over, hiding this is a semi-arid environment, hiding the features, and there's lots of variables that we just don't actually have much control over. Over to Martin now.
Thank you, Martin. Okay. We have to hurry a bit, I'm afraid. Okay. The settlement of al-Ḥīra is located near Najaf in present-day Iraq, about 160 kilometers south of Baghdad. For the history of early Islamic architecture and urban planning, the legendary Arab royal seat of the 5th and 6th century, which was further used until the 10th century, is of fundamental importance as a reference point. In contrast to the significance of the site, the location and the extent of the historic settlement was only approximately known. The area is now severely affected by modern land use. The Hira Survey Project was initiated 2015 as first international archaeological mission in central Iraq since the Gulf War. Until 2018, surface survey and large-scale prospections as UAV overflights and magnetometer prospection have been carried out. So, based on the survey results, the archaeological potential of the surveyed area was evaluated. But especially in the central area, south and within the airport, dense settlement cluster were identified. It's there in the middle. To explore these findings in more detail, further prospections and targeted excavations were carried out in the last years. As the area of of his historic al-Ḥīra is now largely overbuilt by modern settlement. Documentary aerial imagery were included in the research. To be able to reconstruct earlier landscape conditions by analyzing the images of the corona and hexagon visions at the growth of modern settlement since the 1960s can be traced. Due to the excellent visibility of archaeological formations in the hexagon images, but especially in the results of the 1974 vision, it is now possible to trace the edges of the historical settlement, the extent to the west and the south, which have been hitherto unknown, could be identified. Here are courtyard buildings, there, and here are traces of dense, small-scale settlement. To verify and to enhance our understanding of the evaluation of aerial imagery, the results of the application of different prospection methods were combined. Here, the juxtaposition of hexagon imagery with magnetometer data shows three types of settlement forms to be seen also in other parts of the hexagon image. As already said before, it is an important issue to validate the archaeological relevance of the features we perceive in aerial imagery. Even the information in magnetometer data is sometimes or often not so easy to read. Therefore, on site inspection and a precise knowledge of the terrain are also in our project absolutely essential for analyzing remote sensing data regarding the identification of settlement formations through the process of staking out and marking features such as soil marks or plaster edges, as we have no crop marks, of course, in the field. It is possible to understand the relationships between separated features and to reconstruct some of the architectural properties of the site and its urban context, based on the knowledge of confirmed sites. Further, archaeological sites can be identified in other aerial imagery with greater certainty. So, I'm coming to the end. This is a work in progress and also only a part of a larger project with the analysis of historical sources, targeted excavation, the evaluation of small finds, and approaches to generate semi-automated classification of magnetometer data, which is a PhD project of Agnes Schneider. And thank you for your attention.